Hello everyone, my name is Karolyn Hernandez, and this week I did my journal article review on the article entitled Unknown Unloved Teachers' Reported Use and Effectiveness of Classroom Management Strategies for Students with ADHD by Geraldina F. Gastra, Yvonne Groen, Lara Tucha, and Oliver Tucha. So an overview of the article. This article reviews a study conducted on primary and secondary school teachers to determine how often they use and perceived effectiveness of different classroom management strategies, or CMSs, for students with symptoms of ADHD. The study also observed how teachers' attitude towards and knowledge regarding ADHD affects how frequently they used CMSs for students with ADHD symptoms. So quickly, the different CMSs that we'll be referring to in this article and that were referred to when they did this study are threefold. So antecedent-based, so manipulate events that precede target behaviors, so such as seating arrangements or tutoring beforehand if they're having some difficulties with a certain subject matter. Then the next one is consequence-based, so manipulate events after a target behavior, and this consists of reinforcement and punishment to alter frequency of target behavior. So this can be anything like praise or reprimands, ignoring unwanted behavior, and things like that. And then self-regulation. So these are interventions implemented by the student to develop self-control and problem-solving skills. So this is seen mostly in the older students. For example, in elementary school, age child might not be able to do this as effectively, obviously, as a high school student, for example. And this consists of things like self-reinforcement and self-monitoring. So authors' perspectives and opinions. The study showed that teachers reported using antecedent-based CMSs the most and self-regulation the least. And the reported perceived effectiveness of the CMSs were in accordance with the frequency with which the teachers use them. Quickly, I'm going to stop there because antecedent-based CMSs were the ones that they used the most. However, they're suitable and they're most suitable for increasing academic performance. However, this mainly had to do with CMSs used and implemented to improve behavioral issues with children or students showing symptoms or diagnosed with ADHD. So that doesn't actually line up with the evidence base because it says here that self-regulations and consequence-based actually improve classroom behavior of students with ADHD the most out of the classroom management strategies that were listed. So teachers are actually using antecedent-based, even though that's more for academic, not for behavioral. And the reported perceived effectiveness of the CMSs were in accordance with the frequency with which the teachers use them. So perceived effectiveness of CMSs for reducing behavioral problems doesn't correspond to evidence-based effectiveness. Teachers may be insufficiently informed about the effectiveness of different CMSs for students with ADHD, or they may not even be misinformed, they're just not informed. So they don't know that evidence shows that consequence and self-regulation are actually better to use for behavioral issues with children and with students with ADHD versus antecedent-based. And then the third thing that I put here, results showed that secondary school teachers with positive attitudes towards ADHD were more likely to adapt classroom management strategies for students with symptoms of ADHD. So findings showed that secondary school teachers generally do not adapt their classroom practices to students with ADHD symptoms, even though educational problems for students with ADHD often continue into the adolescent years. So although not many teachers that were questioned and that participated in this study, actually, in secondary school teachers, actually adapted their classroom management strategies for students with ADHD, which I think is pretty insane. But although not many did, and generally they didn't, those who did were more likely to do so when they had positive attitudes towards ADHD and towards the classroom management strategies themselves. So if they believe that the classroom management strategies would actually do something, would actually help the child or actually help the student, then they were more likely to do it. But even then, most of them did not, which was pretty shocking, to be perfectly honest. So things that could affect this could be class size. They don't have enough time. Teachers don't know enough about classroom management strategies to know what to use and that they can use it for situations like this. It also may be difficult to implement consistently, especially for secondary school, secondary schools. If the child is moving from class to class and things like that, it may be difficult to implement it consistently. So those are some reasons why the secondary school teachers might not be implementing these classroom management strategies for students with ADHD as often as they should be. And then my reaction, well, I'm truthfully rather disappointed to see the lack of accommodation in the secondary schools for students with ADHD symptoms. Obviously, I'm understanding of the fact that these teachers may not have been aware of the classroom management strategies. They might not know how to use them. Funding may not be there for the school, so they might not be able to afford to be able to care for the students individually and have those plans for them individually as they should. But still, it's rather disappointing to see that so many students with ADHD are suffering because of it, are suffering because either they're not prepared or the school is not helping them, or whatever it may be, whatever the case may be. So I was also surprised to see that teachers were rarely using the classroom management strategies that have evidence showing a greater effect on the behavior of students with ADHD and ADHD symptoms. So those who were using classroom management strategies, a lot of them were using antecedent-based, and as I have stated before, evidence shows that although that's good for their academics and for it might increase their academic progress, their behavioral issues are not going to be resolved with that, or are less likely to be resolved with that, or to improve with antecedent-based. So that could also be a matter of them not knowing, of the teachers that were interviewed here. They might not know that evidence shows otherwise. They might not know that. So that's a matter of being informed and of doing our best now to inform other teachers around us too, now that we know. So implications of practice, it goes with what I was saying, that would like to promote mandatory education about ADHD and other disorders like it for teachers with students with symptoms of these disorders in whatever school I work for. So yeah, in the future, whatever school I find myself in, even if I switch schools or whatever it may be, I definitely want to make it a point to speak to my bosses and inform them that, hey, this is something that is kind of scary, actually, that so many teachers around us don't know classroom management strategies the way that one would hope that they would know, and don't know how to accommodate for students with ADHD and students with other disorders. And it might not be their fault, it's just they were never taught that, in their schools or their teachings. They were never taught that or instructed how to deal with students that have special needs that need to be cared for, that need to be accommodated for. So it's not bashing those teachers or anything like that at all. It's okay, there's a need, so now let's do something about that, and let's prevent this from continuing. Let's stop the cycle now and create a generation of teachers that do know how to help their students with different disabilities, and that can empower those students and help them progress and reach their full potentials the way that as teachers we should strive to do. And I will do my best to accommodate for all my students with disorders and disabilities in the most individualized manner possible. So even though some of these classroom management strategies take more time, so for self-regulation and things like that, it may take more time and it may take more effort on the teacher's behalf to sit down with the student and parents and the whole group of therapists and things like that may may need to be included in the planning process, and even though it may take time to see a change, it's knowing that it's not in vain, that it's for a reason, and that we'll see the fruit of that labor, and most importantly, that student will see the fruit of that labor, because now they're going to be able to take those things that they learn through these classroom management strategies. They're going to be able to take that and generalize it to different parts of their lives and to their future college experience if they decide to go on to college. So that's definitely something that, even if it takes more time, it's worth it. It's worth it for that student. And even if it's just one student who needs it, or if it's 10 students and it takes a lot of time, it's worth it. That was another thing actually in the article, that it was saying that another reason why some teachers were not implementing the classroom management strategies that have evidence backing them up, saying that they're the best ones for behavioral issues, was because it took too much time. They didn't want to or couldn't take that time, but if I have the ability to take that time, I definitely will. And I strongly suggest that any teacher who can does it, makes the extra effort, because that's going to affect that student greatly in the long run. And these are my references. I hope that you enjoyed, and thank you for listening/watching.